What's going on, Skye Squad? We are back in the building. Yes, y'all, we are back in the building. Listen, it's my last morning in LA, and we got to talk about Love and Marriage Huntsville. And I was going to wait until I got back home to try to do this live, but then y'all know what happens. My schedule ends up getting kind of crazy with news and then recaps for Potomac and then Salt Lake City. So I was like, you know what? We're going to do this right here, right now. Okay? So y'all gonna work with me on this one because, you know, it's not live, and y'all know I like to do it live because I like y'all feedback and whatnot. So we're gonna go ahead and get into this episode of Love and Marriage Huntsville. The episode is titled, I Now Pronounce You Depressed. Now, before we get even into this episode, y'all know what I want y'all to do. I want you to rate the episode on a scale of 1 to 10. What you gonna give it a scale of 1 to 10? What you gonna give it? What you gonna give it? What you gonna get it? I'm gonna give it an 8.5. Let me tell you why I'm gonna give it an 8.5. And an 8.5 for this episode is not bad, okay? It's not bad. It's just, there was a lot of interesting dialogue in this episode. You know, really the most, I guess the biggest thing about this episode was two things. You know, it was really focused on Marsau's unwillingness to do this vow renewal with LATISHA. And I feel two ways about it, and we'll discuss it. And so because it was so heavily focused on that, we really didn't get a lot of other action going on. I also feel like some of the things that we got in this episode are really precursors to future episodes. You know, and we'll talk about it probably in the next episode or two, but you know, the other biggest thing about this episode was the discussion about depression and Marsau revealing that he has been seemingly suffering from depression, and he does so in a very interesting way, and we'll discuss that. I think one of the things that I did love about this episode was that they talked about it, and something he said did resonate with me. So we'll talk about that as the episode goes along too. Let me know in the chatterization what you would rate this episode, because you know I like to know. Okay. Also, let us know where you're watching from in the chat. You know, it's fun to know. So we start this episode off the next day after Destiny has threatened to drag Tiffany up, down, and through all the states that she has lived in prior to. And Destiny and Melody hash it out. They sit down and they have a conversation while Melody's doing some work. And you know, Melody thought that maybe Destiny is a little jealous of Tiffany and how, you know, their newfound friendship. And she also feels that Destiny kind of comes across as a mean girl. And we kind of get a little flashback of Destiny dealing with Kimmy. And I'm assuming that flashback was in order to display how in the past Destiny has kind of come off. And then Melody also lets Destiny know that she was making faces when Tiffany was speaking. Now, what I will say about this is this. And I know I'm about to give you guys a little bit of a, I'm about to go deep in a direction that you probably didn't even think that I would go. But what I will say is that, you know, when you are on a reality television show, or even when you're acting, okay, and some people have this uncanny, it could be a problem for some people, their facial expressions, because their facial expressions can sometimes give away what they're feeling, and Destiny does admit to that. But what I will tell you is that when you're on a reality TV show, and this also, again, works in the acting world, a lot of acting is reacting, right? So when they talk about acting, and I used to take acting courses, so I do understand this, it is oftentimes not about necessarily what you're saying. Sometimes it's about how you're reacting to what's being said that really makes an actor great. And the same can be said for a reality TV personality, excuse me, wherein, you know, and you will see this being highlighted a lot. If you are in a scene and you are not the focal point of that scene, one of the things that you need to do is learn how to react, give good facial expressions, because the camera and the producers are going to want great reaction shots. So let's say you're sitting in a scene and two other people are having dialogue and they're kind of going back and forth, but you still need to be noticed, right? So you have got to learn how to give, you know, Karen is very good for facial expressions. Wendy Acefo has become great at facial expressions. Candace gives good facial expressions. Kyle Richards gives amazing facial expressions. Dorit is getting better at her facial expressions. And again, these are things that you're doing and reacting to even if someone isn't talking to you. So what I will say is Destiny is proving herself to be throughout this season. Even though she hasn't been as open as I would like her to be, she's still proving that she is or has the makings of a really great reality TV show personality, because she's not always right. And in my mind, I feel like it's definitely not right that we don't know nothing about this marriage or how it ended. But she definitely ain't always wrong. And I just kind of feel like, again, that's what makes a great reality TV personality, is that everybody can be right and everybody can also be wrong. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of diverted from what I was, where I was going with that. But I wanted to give you guys that even though I don't necessarily feel like there was a resolve between Melody and Destiny with regards to the Tiffany situation, I do think that Destiny is doing the right things in order to stay on this show, whether she is reacting purposefully or she is, overreacting. Whatever the case may be, I feel like she's doing the right thing. And I feel like her and Tiffany are going to, at some point in time, have to have a sit-down ponderosa about exactly what their issues are. And I feel like Destiny is usually in the right when it comes to Tiffany, because as Tiffany's starting to get better about this, but Tiffany will oftentimes do something, take a jab, and then be like, oh my God, I can't believe you're confronting me about something that I did or said that was offensive to you. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, if you're going to be that type of personality, you got to be a bad bee about it. Okay. And you got to be like, yeah, I said it. And okay. Anyway, Tiffany, in her discussion about Destiny to Lewis, feels like Destiny is threatened. And then Lewis feels like Destiny sees their happy marriage and wants what they have. Now, I definitely believe that Tiffany and Lewis are happy, but I don't believe that Destiny is looking at their marriage and thinking that she want what they got. I don't think that's the case. She's annoyed by the things that Tiffany is doing. And that's the bottom line. Moving along, LATISHA and Marsau. She confronts him about the tea that Tiffany brought back that Marsau had given to Lewis about, the surprise therapy session, and how he felt like, LATISHA is less of a less secure person or less secure woman than she used to be. You know what I'm saying? And so he doesn't. The interesting thing about Marsau is that Marsau knows how to downplay things in such a way that I feel like he, to a certain degree, it feels like gaslights LATISHA into bringing her reaction down and calming her down, which could be a good thing or it could be a not so good thing. And sometimes it borderlines on gaslighting to me, because he's basically making her feel like there is no issue when she has an issue. Okay. He does feel like he wouldn't let outside forces dictate the feelings they have about their relationship. But she is concerned about the rumors that are going on around about him, and that family members are continuously coming back with those rumors and questions about their relationship. Now, on the one hand, I feel like he is correct. There is nothing that anybody else should be able to tell you about your relationship. And I feel like you should already know within your own heart, where your partner stands. But I also feel like if everybody is talking about your relationship in this wild and crazy way, the way that they're doing about, their relationship, then she has a right to feel some type of way and to question the things that he says. Just because he said it and just because he mandates it doesn't mean that she has to accept it. You know what I'm saying? Specifically, if the streets are talking, and the streets are talking. He does ask her what he could do differently. And she wants to be, she wants to spend more time together as a family. She wants to travel more together instead of it just being her and the kids all the time. And he feels like one day he will get there. Now, this is something that I will say that I do feel like I understand with Marsau is I think sometimes, specifically with black men who really want to take care of their family. And I'm specifically stating black men because I'm a black man. So I'm just stating something that I feel like I see within our community, especially amongst men that, want to be a primary caretaker or a a productive member of the relationship. I feel like a lot of times we want to take care of everything. We want to be the provider. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times that's what's ingrained in men to do. And so what it sounds like here is we're getting an inkling of is that he is just in a cycle of work. And I understand that. You get in this cycle of work and it becomes one of the most prevailing things. I am like that myself because I will work, again, as you guys see, on vacation, and I will put myself in a continuous cycle of work because of the commitment that I have to myself, that I'm going to be, that I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it the correct way. I'm going to do it the way that I see it in my mind. But, you also have that whole situation where you kind of want to provide for your family. You want to be a provider. So I understand where he's coming from. And this is going to be something that he talks about later that I honestly feel like may be contributing to the depression that he talks about later on in the episode. She introduces the idea of recommitting, to their vows, because they're there in Vegas to celebrate, being together for 15 years. So, the fact that she wants to renew their vows is, to me, it's not unreasonable. But Marsau is not interested in doing that. And the excuse that he gives her is this. He doesn't feel like it would be the humble thing to do because they are surrounded by people that have been divorced and are just newly married. So he feels like it's going to be rubbing their 15 years in their faces. I don't buy this as an excuse, to be quite honest with you. I just think that he don't want to do it. That's pretty much it. And I think that we'll talk about it later, but Destiny says something to the effect that, this is another form of control for Marsau because, he doesn't even want to get up in front of this group of people and express his love for his wife the way that she wants him to do it. Okay. LATISHA stops by Tiffany and Lewis's room. Tiffany wants to know if they're good. LATISHA says that they're good. She needs Tiffany to work on her timing. Tiffany says that she hopes that the group can learn to accept her for the transparent woman that she actually is. And again, I have no problem with Tiffany inserting herself and doing this, that, and the third. But if you're going to be that personality, you got to stand 10 toes down in it. And my problem with Tiffany is she don't stand 10 toes down in it. She is going to act like she really wasn't meaning anything by it when she said it. No, own it. Just simply say, yo, listen, I said that. I did say it. And this is what I meant when I said it. And let's be real about it. You want to have a conversation about something, have a conversation. Tiffany is becoming more of that as the time goes on, I think. But at the end of the day, she's going to have to learn that if she chooses to be that type of personality, she is also making a choice that will put her in a space where she may not be liked by a lot of people. So you're either going to be that person or you're not going to be that person. But you need to decide which one you're going to be, because you can't be the victim and the villain at the same time. Okay? So anyway, she relays that Marsau won't be doing the vow renewal, but LATISHA has already paid for the venue. Lewis and Tiffany want her to continue on with this plan to do the vow renewal anyway. But listen, I'm going to say this. If you and your man had a conversation about something and he said he not with it, okay, don't you let nobody come in and convince you otherwise. At the end of the day, do I think he could have done it? Yes. Do I think she should do it if he don't want to do it? No. Okay. That's a whole nother conversation for a different day. And you should definitely, LATISHA, not be influenced by these people. Okay. Because at the end of the day, that leads you back down the path of listening to any and everybody being able to influence you when it comes down to your relationship. But again, that wouldn't be a problem if the streets weren't continuously talking about the man. Okay. So she decides that she's not going to do it. Anyway, it's the last night in Vegas. Everyone boards the Sprinter van. We learn that Kimmy and Destiny both had lap dances. And Destiny feels like Kimmy and Maurice are a little bit too excited about her lap dance. And she says Maurice has a cheesy grin on his face. Now, I don't know if Tiffany... I'm assuming Destiny's probably just joking about all this. And I'm sure she will say that at the reunion. But at the end of the day, one of the things I probably wouldn't do specifically with, you know, two of my married friends is joke about maybe one or two of them wanting to get with me. I definitely wouldn't do that. Now, maybe it's okay for a woman to do, because sometimes, you know, men would like to see two women together. So maybe, you know, that's the angle she taking. But at the end of the day, within a group of friends like this, I just think that's a dangerous game to play, and I definitely wouldn't play it. Because I don't think Kimmy is really feeling Destiny in that way. I think she like her, but I don't think she like her like that. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I could be wrong. I don't know. I ain't there. They arrive at the wedding chapel, and Martell is wondering if maybe Melody wants to marry him again. Oh, Lord, give it up, Martell. Kimmy jokes about Team Holt renewing their vows, but Melody is annoyed by that because she's like, why y'all keep doing this? This is too fresh for y'all to be joking around with. I'm seriously going through issues with this man still, and y'all keep bringing up us being together when she feels like she tried to be there with this man and she gave everything that she possibly could, and it still won't enough. Anyway, LATISHA asks if anyone wants to renew their commitments to each other, and Marsau is secretly hoping that it's not them. Now, Marsau then jumps in and says anybody could be recommitting to anything. And Martell reasons that if Marsau felt the same way about their marriage that LATISHA feels, in terms of wanting to renew their vows, then their marriage could actually be great. And in my mind, I was thinking to myself, Martell is making a very interesting observation, especially coming from someone who could not keep his own marriage because he could not stop doing the thing that he was doing with the woman outside of the marriage, so much so that he ended up having a baby. So I don't know that I really need to be listening to him. Anyway, Marsau then does something weird. He even suggests that somebody else surprise somebody else with a vow renewal. Now, what bothers me about this situation is, one, Marsau, you didn't want LATISHA to do that to you. And then number two, when Lewis and Tiffany decide that they're going to be the ones to do it, you then are going to shade them for doing it because they only been married for what, like 11 months or something like that. So he talks about how he's joking about, well, how y'all going to do this? I mean, in the confessional, of course, not to their face. But he's over there asking, well, how y'all going to do this? And y'all recommitting to yourselves, and y'all just got married the other day. Martell is even kind of joking on them about it in his confessional as well. But in my mind, I was like, I commend them for doing it because at least they could be an example for two people who just wanted to renew or recommit themselves. And I see nothing wrong with wanting to do that each and every day. And you should be able to get up in front of a group, in front of your friends who have all come to celebrate you and your wife for making it to 15 years. You should be able to at least get up on the stage in front of everybody and at least just simply say some nice words of encouragement and say something to your wife who you know wants you to make some type of gesture like that. And then I think also, too, it's like it would just be befitting if you said something. Just do something. And, you know, to joke about, you know, Lewis and Tiffany because they chose to do it. I'm like, bro, you just said somebody should do it. So now that they're doing it, you shading them? Get out of here with that. I didn't really even understand it. You know, so Tiffany and Lewis, they recommit themselves to each other, whatever. Then the conversation turns back to, you know, Marsau at least getting up and saying some nice words about, you know, their marriage. And Melody's like, you know, y'all could at least do that. And so then Lewis backs her up. And Marsau is like, you know, no, I'm not going to do that because, you know, basically he just doesn't want to, you know. That's when Destiny reasons that he just wants to control, you know, LATISHA, and this is just another form of controlling her by not giving her something that he knows that she really wants. So Mel straight up asked LATISHA if she would like for Marsau to do that. And LATISHA's like, you know, no, I'm not going to try to make him do anything that he doesn't want to do. And, you know, it's just... It just goes nowhere. Melody's annoyed by this whole situation because she's like, you know, LATISHA, you look disappointed. And LATISHA's like, no, I'm okay. But when they talk outside, Melody does go to, you know, to check in on LATISHA. You can tell that LATISHA is disappointed that he couldn't even, just renew their vows in some type of fun way. You know what I'm saying? And I just didn't get it. It's 15-year anniversary. If you're not going nowhere, you're on a show about your marriage. Why not? Why not? Whatever. Anyway, they get to the Gordon Ramsay restaurant in the Paris Hotel. We learned that Marsau is paying for dinner. That to him is his grand gesture for everybody. Anyway, so the conversation turns to the group celebrating all types of marriages and milestones. And Mel says, well, it's sad that the Holtz won't be doing that no more. Well, not really that it's sad, but she just kind of mentions that the Holtz won't be participating in those types of things no more. And, Martell chimes in and basically says, well, you never know. I mean, me and you might get married again. So I'm still holding out hope I'm going to be married again. But the funny thing about it is, I would have thought that, if you went so hard to connect with this woman outside of your relationship, it would seem like that's the woman that you really wanted to be with. If you're going to lose everything in your marriage to something, it seems like it would have been to gain another wife. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, now they're not even together. So what was it all for? What was it for? I don't know. He never makes any sense to me. Anyway, he wants to cheers to happiness, and Melody's like, Martell, you don't want nobody to be happy. I done spilled coffee on myself. Martell, you don't want nobody to be happy. You told me that you hope somebody get with me and they break my heart. And, the women are wondering kind of like why, well, she's kind of wondering why he said that or whatever. And Marsau jumps in and basically is like, he wants you to think that that he is the best thing that ever happened to you. That's what every man wants his woman to think. But in my mind, it's like, that don't make no sense. He want to run around and be the best thing that ever happened to a whole bunch of women? Make it make sense to me. So anyway, it kind of goes around that. And then Marsau wants to address Louis and Tiffany having pillow talk about the things that Marsau told Louis in confidence. And Louis was like, well, it only came back around to your wife. We in a friend group. That's what we supposed to do. We're going to talk about these things that come up. And I'm going to be the type of person that's going to hold you accountable. And Marsau was like, well, if I wanted my wife to know that, I would have had the conversation with her. Now, one could argue, we can sometimes break the third wall and say, we'll break the fourth wall and say, listen, if you had the conversation with Louis, you have to know that you're being filmed and she's going to see it at some point. But I also understand living in the reality TV moment wherein you are just doing what you would normally do. And I feel like that is kind of Marsau in that situation. He was doing what he would normally do, having conversation with his boys, and that should have stayed there. And I have to respect that too, because I can at least say that he was living in the reality TV show moment and not posturing for the cameras. Okay, so I will say that. Anyway, but it was funny when he addressed Louis, Tiffany tried to chime in and say, you mean that you should communicate more openly with your wife? And Marsau was like, I'm kind of talking to Louis right now. And, she's ready to, jump in and defend her man, which is why I say I feel like she's getting a little bit more bold and standing a little bit more 10 toes down in, what her calling is on this show. Okay. If you're going to be the messy boots, put everything out there on everybody, you got to stand 10 toes down on it. So this was probably one of the first time that I actually saw her back herself up, except for last episode with Destiny, because she definitely went toe to toe with Destiny at that point. And we also learned that they went toe to toe with each other in the van on the way back too. So we missed some of that. And so Carlos King, when you give us that Secrets Revealed episode, I'm gonna need you to give us all of that conversation on the van on the way back, just in case, because I want to know. Anyway, so we get to this question from Maurice about how important is happiness to you in a relationship. But Melody wants to talk about really how detrimental is depression in a relationship and as it relates to happiness. Now, this was interesting because Marsau says that happiness is secondary to commitment. And he reveals that he's been depressed at the most successful times in his life. And so the conversation kind of turns to whether or not, if you're feeling depressed, then you need to fight for happiness. But I think with Marsau, what he's saying is that he feels like what I need to do is make everything in my life about success. But in doing so, you can get, and this applies for all of us. In doing so, you can get so caught up in what you think life is supposed to be, what you think success is supposed to be, that you actually miss out on the living of actual life, right? So how does that manifest itself in his relationship? Well, it manifests itself in the way that he's not spending time with his family in the way that his family is asking him to do so. LATISHA, from the start of the show, has been asking Marsau for more time, to spend more time with the kids, to spend more time with her so they could travel more. So she's continuously asking for this. And his excuse is that I'm working to build, I'm working to build, I'm working to build. But at a certain point in time, and this goes for myself too, and it probably goes, I would say, for some of y'all out there listening as well. There comes a time when you either have to learn to work smarter or you have to work a little less, okay? And you have got to realize that it has to be a work-life balance, because I say it all the time, you cannot pour from an empty cup. So for me, what that means is I have to make sure that I dedicate as much time to play, as much time to, my partner, as much time to my mental health, and sometimes, and my creativity. And for a person who is a creative like myself, we sometimes get into this habit of, just continuously working. But in order to stay creative, you need time to do nothing, right? And that is the only way, that is the time for me that I have discovered that I'm able to refill my creative juices, right? And if you don't spend that time fulfilling those other activities that make your life whole, then you will definitely end up in the space that Marsau is in, where everything comes down to is, I'm working to build for my future. I'm working to build for my future. But actually, you're missing out on the life that you're living right now, which is gonna lead to you being unhappy. So you can be hustling out there, and this is why I gotta do a video on hustle mentality being dangerous, especially for, people right now, is because we get so caught up in this whole idea that I gotta hustle to succeed. I gotta hustle for my family. And yes, we want to be better. We want to do more. We want to have more money. We want to have more wealth. But we have got to learn how to, integrate time for rest, time for family, time for friends, and time to have a balanced life, so that success actually really means something at the end of the day, because it doesn't mean anything if you're not happy. And I love that they touched on this in this episode, because it hit me. It made me stop and realize it's a reminder of the commitment that I made to myself this year I need to work smarter, not harder. You know what I'm saying? Because we can hustle and hustle and hustle, but it won't really matter at the end of the day if there is no happiness and joy inside that hustle. So I thought this was an amazing episode, y'all, in that respect, because it's a topic that we, especially in the Black community, don't really talk about enough. And we see so much, especially on social media, with regards to, we got to hustle, we got to grind, we got to do this, that, and the third. And while that is true, and sometimes it may be that we hustle in sprints, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that hustling is bad, but what I will say is you can't do it all the time. And it can't come at the expense of your family and at of your own happiness. And I like that we're discovering this with Marsau, because I think it also lends itself to some of the maybe misogynistic characteristics that he displays on the show. And I would wager to say that these are learned behaviors and probably something that he saw growing up. And with his own family. And he's adopted that mentality as well. But we will dive more into that in the next episode, I think. So shout out to Carlos King, shout out to Marsau for being transparent with that, because that was a moment of transparency. And that was, I think, a big moment for him. And I want to acknowledge that right now. And to the show in general for, directing that conversation to the topic of depression, and to the network as well for the little title, for the little card that they put in the end about people who might be dealing with depression. I thought that was amazing, and I really liked it. And it's interesting we can tie that back into this notion that Marsau does not want to attend surprise therapy or therapy in general. Isn't that interesting? And now we bring it back around to this whole topic of depression. Wow. That's masterpiece theater right there. And so we got to give it up to them for that. But anyway, guys, that is this video for Love and Marriage Huntsville. We'll be back next week with another video. It'll be on a Sunday, but it will be live because I will be at home. I'm not traveling for a little while, I don't think. So we should be all good on our lives and getting back to business. So thank you for sticking around with me and working with me as I, get through these travels. But we're going to be back on a regular schedule tomorrow. And I will see you guys in the next video.